Welcome back in, everybody, to another edition of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. And we are so good at our jobs that we're dropping a second episode within a week because, we have basically done fucked up for the last 2.5 weeks. So it's all right. But we're here. I feel very productive and professional right now. I got the mic out today. Joe had to acknowledge that he was like, yeah, Blaine, you might as well rock one because I'm better than you anyway. So it doesn't matter if we're leveling the playing field. But he's all bark, no bite, guys. Don't worry. So I'll show him up in our conversations today, talking AFC North. Joe, how are we doing?
We're doing great. We're 48 hours less right now, 48 hours and less until we see the pigskin battock up in the air for the Hall of Fame game. And I am stoked for it. I'll tell you that. I cannot wait.
Honestly, all right. Do you like the Hall of Fame game? Do you like it?
Absolutely not. It's
That's
terrible.
what come
It's
on.
absolutely
You
terrible.
were totally trying to hype that up so much. And I'm pretty sure the third stringers are the only ones that play.
Look, I do enjoy if I'm at the TV, right, and I'm watching TV or something like that, I will watch like the first possession on either side. Especially to see our boy Zach Wilson out there, the BYU native.
You
Going
think
to be
Zach Wilson gets out there today?
Yeah, they already said it. Adam Schefter reported today that Zach Wilson will be the starting quarterback for the New York Football Jets
Wow.
on Thursday. So yeah, but I always try to tune in at least just for a couple plays, just because it's good to see football back, man. God, these training camp videos got me hyped up. It's unbelievable right now. Touch wood, we haven't had too many injuries since Thursday, and I hope that continues.
Right. That's always the scary part when it gets to this time, that no one gets hurt. Especially none of the star players get hurt, because it just unfortunately ruins the game a little bit.
Yeah, it just ruins fantasy football for all of us.
Yeah. And that's what it all is for us.
That's all it is.
We have our teams that we root for, but it all comes down to whether or not we can make some money in fantasy football.
Look, I get past the money point, truthfully. I had this discussion with a couple of
it?
No.
No.
I moved past the money point. It's just the bragging rights. If I can shove in your face that I beat you last year, that's all I care about. I'm in a league this is our 10th or 11th year right now, and I got 2 championships. I'm tied for the most championships in the league. There's 4, myself included, there's 4 guys that have won 2 championships. So that's 8 already settled up and in, good to go. And then we have like another one, which was before I even joined. And then there's this one now, or another guy, and he left the league. So there is how many members? There's 12 of us. So 7 members or 8 members don't have a championship at all. I've been in the league for probably 8, 9, 10 years now. So we just bust chops. No, that's my league.
Oh, okay.
That's a different league. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just because that is the most ball busting time. Like right now, it's the group chat's just going boom, 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 boom. It's unbelievable.
Do you guys do punishments for last place?
No, like we've always said we are, and then we just never really get around to it. So, honestly, the amount of ball busting is probably enough punishment. Truthfully enough.
I only had to ask because I saw a bunch of them now because of TikTok. They do TikTok dances as their punishment. They gotta do 10 TikTok the most popular dances as their punishment and put it on their channel or whatever.
That, or they gotta get a certain amount of likes.
Right.
I've seen that. I just saw one actually today where they made the last place guy go out and play 18 holes in a dress, and he sunk 150-yard pitch shot. And they were like, you probably should just wear the dress whenever you golf now. I was like, wow, buddy, good shot, man. Keep that dress on. Probably shot your best round ever. So
yeah, all right. That's just he now just incentivized himself to keep wearing the dress. That's all.
Exactly. So, but yeah, no, we never really got into the punishment side of things. Just like I said, I think busting balls is good enough for the punishment for me. So
yeah, that's what I think in the leagues that I've done, because I am actually in one of my leagues the championship leader at 3, and we've been playing for about 10. We're on year I think it's year 9 now going into. I've been running this league.
Okay.
And all I do is all I do is record myself with "We Are the Champions" in the background with their money or their Venmo that I get, and I just make a little video that I send to them.
There you go. I like that. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah, you
I
rub it in.
the year I won the league, which was actually 2 years ago, I never got the trophy because the guy that left the league has the trophy, so we have to get it from him. Because last year I was gonna take pictures like every Sunday with the trophy, like, oh, like me and the trophy staying in bed today, like wait until 1 o'clock on Sunday was out, like, oh, me and the trophy having dinner tonight at the Italian place, can't wait for Thursday night. Like I was gonna do stuff like that, but I didn't get the trophy, so do that.
Will you actually get the trophy is now the question because he's left the league.
No, because another guy won already. So he'll get it now.
Well, do you think will you be able to retrieve the trophy though?
Oh, will I win again? Absolutely.
No. Will the guy that has left the league be so gracious enough to give you guys the trophy?
Oh, yeah. Dude, he's a great guy. He's like an older guy, but probably like 70, 80 years old. Dude, listen to what his name is.
Okay.
His name is Bob Barker.
What?
Not yeah, I swear to God. His
You
name's
are,
Bob Barker.
bro, you are capping me so
No, no,
hard
no, no,
right
no,
now.
no, 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 no. We'll talk about it later. I can't give his name too much more. But, his name's Bob Barker. And yeah, he doesn't host the prices right, but it's incredible. Good stuff.
Does or does not host the Price is Right?
Does not, does not, does
So he
not.
wasn't on Happy Gilmore beating
He
up
was
Adam
not.
Sandler.
No, 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 no,
That's
no.
unfortunate.
But he's even more famous than that. I'll tell you that. So,
Wow, there's definitely a story to this.
oh man. All right. Well, let's
But
get into some real football talk here. All right, there, big guy. Instead of this fake stuff in
I can
fantasy
talk.
football,
We could probably talk about the fake stuff for a good hour and a half, easy.
we might have to do a mock draft or something together and explain the picks and stuff like that. So, next thing you know, he's taking Sam Howell in the second round. It's like, buddy, easy there.
Buddy, he's there. He's value.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. Like we said last week, we're going to hop into the AFC North. I think it's one of the toughest divisions to win this year. It's going to be very, very interesting. It's right there with the AFC West as well, but I think you can make a case for any one of these teams to pull out the division this year. So let's start off with the AFC division winners of last year. The Cincinnati Bengals ended up in the AFC Championship game as well. Key additions for them, they picked up from the Super Bowl team, Orlando Brown, the offensive tackle from Kansas City. Big pickup for them to finally protect Joe Burrow. Jermaine Pratt, linebacker. Nick Scott, safety. And their rookie draft pick was Miles Murphy, which is a solid pick out of Clemson. Key departures, though, they did lose a couple people, especially in their secondary. Jesse Bates went to Atlanta. Von Bell, another safety. Hayden Hurst, their tight end, which Burrow was kind of liking close to the end of the year and in the playoffs. He is on his way. And Samaje Perine, they do not have the RB2 and Samaje Perine anymore because Mixon's good for at least 3 games of missing. So we're gonna see what that works out. Blaine over under setting 11.5. I like that number. It's a good number. And Joe Burrow will be missing a few weeks training camp. He does have a calf strain, so we'll be keeping an eye on that and what that looks like into the regular season. So, Blaine, with them key additions, key departures, how do you think the Bengals are going to, fare on the offensive line? I think that was always a big question mark. How are they going to be able to protect Joe Burrow? And then on the flip side, is their secondary going to be able to recover now with the Jesse Bates and Von Bell leaving?
I think the larger problem is the secondary. You lost 2 of your veterans that anchored your defense and your secondary, especially Jesse Bates. The man was an absolute ball hawk last year, played a very solid free safety covering the field, which allowed Von Bell to kind of play more in the box as the strong safety. The two went very collaborated well hand in hand, right? The way that their games kind of suited each other's that allowed them to kind of be successful where they needed to be. I think that's going to be a huge concern, especially when their cornerbacks haven't been overly successful in recent years to begin with. And then you take away basically their true quarterbacks in the secondary in those two. I think the middle of the field now becomes a safe haven for all of their competitors, right? And what's the one team that is probably the front runner as the contender against them? The Baltimore Ravens. And who do they have that absolutely owns the middle of the field? And that's Mark Andrews. That is a huge feast or famine for the Cincinnati Bengals. I love this at 11 and a half number because, like we kind of talked about, this division is so hard to predict that I would not be surprised if all four teams were respectfully around 500 in the division. Like that is not a far cry. Them all because of how these are four pretty competitive squads that were teetering last year with the postseason, where two of them got in, right? Or three of the four got in, excuse me. Right? Or did
No,
Pittsburgh come up short? It
Pittsburgh.
was
No,
two.
Pittsburgh didn't get
Sorry.
in. It was the Ravens and the
No,
Bengals.
Raven, but Pittsburgh finished 500, the Mike Tomlin effect, right? And Cleveland was still trying to figure out the whole Deshaun Watson situation. They're going to be so much better again this year, now having him under his belt. Offensive line speaking, they've had that issue for now ever since Burrow's been there. Orlando Brown definitely shores up his blind side. I still have concerns though at the other four spots because they still, regardless of making that change, did not have a significant drop off in pressures and in sacks, which what they we all thought with all the changes that they made on the offensive line would be a huge help. Um, this team is going to have to score. That's been their calling card the last couple of seasons, is that they have to outscore their opponents. It's going to be the same way again this year. I think 11 and a half is a very tough number, and I think it's right on the money.
I think it's just Joe Burrow has to play a smart game and just what he's been doing, right? I don't think they necessarily have to outscore where they got to go score 35 points, 31 points a game. This defense, especially their D line, is still solid, right? They're still able to get pressure now with Miles Murphy, adding him to the repertoire there. I don't see a problem there. I mean, they can still win games 24-21, right? It's the AFC North. It's always a grit and battle whenever they get to it.
Sure.
I'm always surprised to see games when it's 31-28 because I'm like, this is not typical NFC North battles here, right? Or AFC North battles, excuse me. So, I think you do make a good point. I think that safety and alone the whole secondary is up for grabs for them. Eli Apple is another one that walked. I mean, burnt like
Yeah.
an apple. We always said when he got torched in when he played the Rams, but he's gone. Jesse Bates gone. Von Bell gone. You got three shoes you're going to have to replace in that secondary. Who's going to fill that role? I mean, they did grab Nick Scott as safety, so I mean, okay, I guess you filled one of them roles, but you still got Jesse Bates. To me, is you hit the
Huge.
nail right on the head, right? Like it's a steal. It's you losing him is going to be unbelievable because essentially he was almost like your play caller in the backfield, right? I mean, you talk about some great safeties. He was one of the great safeties, if not top five, top three, maybe safety in the league. And I think losing him is going to really, really hit them hard. However, on the flip side, Orlando Brown coming for being able to protect Joe Burrow's blind side, I think it's massive for him. I think it's massive for Joe Burrow's success and maybe even getting better, having more time in the pocket, going from there. I think Jamar Chase could have a very, very solid season as he was prior. I think T. Higgins could have a solid season. However, the only thing I'm thinking about here is I know Tyler Boyd was kind of his safety blanket, but he really was keening in on the Hayden Hurst at the end of last year and in the playoff. So who's going to replace that Hayden Hurst role? Is Boyd going to slide back in now, or I think they picked up Irv Smith Jr. Is he going to slide maybe into that role of
Right.
Hayden Hurst? Is it going to be more dump offs to Joe Mixon out of the backfield? I mean, he was already getting a plethora of catches. So, I'm interested to see what Burrow does. I mean, of course, he's going to throw the ball a shit ton. We get that. They're still going to be able to run the ball a little bit with Mixon, and Chase and Higgins are going to get their touches, but there's got to be usually that third option. Is it going to be Tyler Boyd once again? Or is it going to be someone else like an Irv Smith that comes in and takes away that them catches from Jamar Chase? So like you said, I think 11 and a half is a solid number. I'm leaning a little bit to one way than the other, but we'll say that at the end what it is. But yeah, we'll see. So
All right, I'll take the next one.
all right,
I got you. I let you run pretty much the entire show last week, so I'll take some
I
pressure
appreciate it.
off of your hands. No.
Appreciate that.
Next up, let's talk Baltimore Ravens. Some key additions they had. Mostly it's at the receiving core position with adding Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr. Odell's coming off of the injury. Zay Flowers, first round draft picked out of Boston College, very uh, kind of a slot slash running back type player, all about trying to get touches with him and get him in space. But lots of departures on the defensive side for this Baltimore team. They're kind of cleaning house with how their secondary is going to be functioning, losing Marcus Peters, Chuck Clark, Jason Pierre-Paul, Calais Campbell, Justin Houston. The list goes on and on for this defensive team. Going to be a completely new defensive look. But the biggest news was that they were able to ink Lamar into that long-term deal. We were both pretty much trying to advocate for him to get his money, but like we both have also said at our prereq, can he stay on the field? These last 2 years, he hasn't been able to do that, only really making on average 11 or 12 starts out of these last 2 years. Joe, the line here for the Baltimore Ravens is 9.5. What you got? Talk to me.
I think if Lamar is on the field, it's almost kind of like for me with Miami, right? If Tua is on the field, this team can win games. If Lamar's on the field, this team can win games and probably can win a lot of games, truthfully. I think the additions and in the receiving room with Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers is going to be tremendous. I think the connection with Mark Andrews is still there, and I think it's going to be as good as it was 2 to 3 years ago when he was in that MVP season. I think he's going to I think he's going to go ballistic, truthfully enough. I think he's going to have a hell of a season once again, maybe even damn near MVP talks. That's where I think he's going to be at if he stays healthy. It's all
Right.
what it comes down to if he stays healthy. However, on the flip side for the Ravens, I think losing Calais Campbell is going to be a massive loss for them, a
Mm-hmm.
massive loss. Um, Actually, two guys that we talked about, we've been talking highly of. Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell is now on Atlanta Falcons, so I'm pretty hyped about it. But losing Calais Campbell, not only you lose a great defensive tackle up front that can get pressure and stop the run, you are losing a veteran presence as well in that locker room. And
Mm-hmm.
losing Marcus Peters, right? He does a lot of talking, right? He does give up a couple touchdowns, but when he needs to, he puts that seatbelt on them wide receivers. I'll tell you that. So I think it's going to be interesting. However, they do get David Ajabu from Michigan. He'll be coming back
Right.
off the Achilles injury. He played a couple games last year at the end, nothing too crazy, but coming back full off season, he's ready to go. So that'll add to the edge. And of course, they have oh my God, who is the linebacker they just traded for from Chicago Bears last year? What is his
Roquan.
name?
Roquan.
Roquan Smith. There it is. One of the best middle linebackers in the game, if not the best middle linebacker in the game. So he's
Put
going
him
to keep that
alongside
defense.
Patrick Queen, obvious.
Yep. Yep. And I think he's going to keep that offense, keep that defense rocking and rolling, and probably the offense, truly enough, to say the least. I do have some high expectations for these Baltimore Ravens. I think this team is locked and loaded and ready to make a big playoff push in the AFC.
I agree. I think we can both agree it's predicated on how Lamar Jackson, whether or not he stays on the field. We both know in the 2 years that before he's gotten hurt, he was right there, if not the front runner in the MVP conversation because of how basically he was winning his team games by himself. The defense
Yep.
struggles from time to time. They get beat huge by the big play. They get very lackadaisical in the secondary, especially when they have a lead. That team last year blew a lot of leads when they were in front. That's the one Achilles heel that they really demonstrated last year. Like they said, you still went 10-7 and Lamar missed 5 games. Like, think about that. Like, you put Lamar in there for 5 games, you probably add 2 or 3 more wins there, and they're right there in the discussion for being the top overall seed in the AFC.
Yep.
My concern is their secondary. It's always their secondary now, year in, year out for them. How much can they really limit the damage? Their linebacking core, like you mentioned, is elite with Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith being the spearheading that fight. But defensively speaking, they have not been that elite defense that has really been there. They showed some promise towards the latter half of last year, right? When Lamar kind of went down and they made the trade for Roquan Smith. But you're kind of blowing everything up defensively around them now. That's 5 of your starters now walking away. That's a lot. So it's going to be a new look defense. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be a solid defense. I'm not saying that, but the team is very warranted to giving up the big play. But with Lamar, the team's always going to be in consideration. I think 9.5 is actually being generous, and this team's got one of the easier schedules in football this year. The winning percentage from last year is only 484, which is in the bottom 10 of schedules going into this season. So I think that 9.5 is being generous, if I'm being completely honest. But I think it's also because of the Lamar Jackson effect of whether he's going to stay on the field.
Yeah. It seems like to me, as you said earlier, right? He's only playing like 12 or 13 games a year, which is just kind of brutal. But when he does play, and you look at that MVP season, I think he played 15 games. He was unstoppable. That team was incredible. They had a home field advantage in round one. So it shows if he's on the field and he's healthy, they're going to do well. And I want to put something out as well. I think the Ravens are notorious for notorious for running the hell out of the ball, right? They got like 4 running backs on this team, and Lamar Jackson's a 5th, right? But it's going to come down to this, right? We're talking about the receiving room that is probably the best that Lamar's has ever had with Mark Andrews, Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, and Rashard Bateman. Did Lamar work on his accuracy? That's kind of the question. That's been the question for the last 3-4 years now is, okay, Lamar, like we know you can sling the rock a little bit deep, but like, all right, did you improve on your accuracy? Did you improve on them 15, 20-yard ins or them 15, 20 yards outs? Or, or is it you're going to limit the turnovers to an extent? Are you not going to look first to run or, maybe look upfield and look to pass first, not looking to run, right away? So I would like to see that maybe improvement or that, kind of change in his game to an extent, because maybe that could help him out and be on the field more because of that change and maybe not cause these injuries to happen. So I think that's like kind of a big question mark for me for Lamar still is I still haven't seen him, have one of them complete games where like, wow, Lamar Jackson fit into these tight windows or, he was able to sling the rock down 25 yards on a dot, right? Like we just need to see that. And I hope we do see that progression one way or another this year.
It's a huge question mark, and it's a warranted question mark, right? He's ever since that MVP season, it wasn't like he was blowing people away with his passing accuracy that year, too. He hovers
Correct.
around, he's flatlined these last 3 or 4 years where it comes to the accuracy. Can he get that consistency even above to that? I think it's that 65% mark that he really can't get to, right? He hovers in the high 50s, low 60s. So can he get to that coveted 65% number? That's a very good question mark. And I don't think he's been very adamant now that he doesn't want to be as much of a runner as he usually is. Does the play calling adjust for that to happen now that they put more trust in him throwing the football? Because the man is arguably the best playmaker there is in football. There's no question about that. He is in that conversation when he has the ball in his hands. It is electricity.
I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'll tell you this: he's a top 3, maybe top 5. No, top. I'll go with it. I'm going to stay in the bold state. He's a top 3 quarterback. I want to have the ball in his hands in the final 2 minutes. I've said that before. And I still fully kind of believe that.
Is that
Actually,
because of how
I do
elite
believe
he is with his arm and his legs?
Absolutely. Right. Like Patrick Mahomes is another one. I mean, Tom Brady, when Tom Brady was here, was still in the top 3 for me. Patrick Mahomes is pretty damn close, to top 3 as well. But Lamar Jackson, for me, when he has the ball in his hands, final 2 minutes. Okay, yeah, he's gonna find a couple dink and dunk passes, but you also have to worry about him on his feet because he could bust out a 25-yard run just like that. And next thing you know, they're almost scoring in the end zone when you just were going to anticipate to give away a field goal.
Right.
Um, he's incredible when it comes to that. Got to see him. I even got to see with my own eyes when they played the Cincinnati Bengals. He just played solid ball in the final 2 minutes and was able to lead the team down the field for Justin Tucker field. I mean, it does help to have one of the best kickers ever as well. But Lamar, like I said, is a top three who I want to have the ball in his hands in the final 2 minutes as a quarterback.
I mean, I won't go as high as top three, but I think he's warranted in that top five conversation. He's right there for me. So not that far out.
Sure.
All right, let's go to the next squad. I'll do Cleveland. We got the Cleveland Browns next.
The Brownies.
The Brownies. I hate that the logo that they're now putting the brownie in the middle of the field back to their old school. Have you been seeing that?
The Bulldog?
No, their version of like it looks like a leprechaun, the
Oh,
leprechaun
the
guy.
elf, like the
Yeah,
elf.
yeah, yeah. I
I
don't know.
I thought it was the Bulldog actually they came out with this year, and I
Did they
actually
go to
liked
the
it.
bull? They went to it was the elf last year. Did they switch it up to the bulldog?
Yeah, I believe it's the Bulldog this year, and I actually like the Bulldog. Great design, kind of
Okay.
like it. So
All right. Key additions for the Cleveland Browns. Juan Thornhill in the secondary. Made a trade for Elijah Moore to add another offensive weapon there as he was kind of wanting out of New York. Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle. I have no idea how to say this name. Ogbonia Okornokwo. Did I say that
yeah,
right?
he's a linebacker from Houston.
Yeah, from
Yep,
Houston.
yep.
Departures kind of is the
Oh no, no, no,
formula.
no! You missed one.
What?
You missed a big one.
I only have
Z-
the four on my list.
Darius Smith came over
Oh,
from
that's right.
Minnesota. Huge one, huge
Huge
one,
one.
huge one.
Well, the site I'm using obviously sucks.
All right. We
um,
won't
de-
credit them.
departures, John Johnson the third in the secondary, Jadeveon Clowney at defensive end. And a little bit of people kind of not realizing that. Remember, Kareem Hunt was not picked up, re-signed as the backup running back there in Cleveland. So Kareem Hunt as well. Another team that it kind of comes down to, right? Whether or not the quarterback's going to be able to make plays and be the difference. The whole reason that they made the trade and paid the money and dealt with all of the off the field crap with Deshaun Watson was to pay him now his $40 million that he gets this year because he only made the $1 million last year for the 6 games that he played, where he went 3-3, wasn't great, wasn't awful. He was very meh, very meh. That's what I like to describe. Meh. Very meh in his 6 starts. And where does it come now? Their offseason was other than though Darius Smith was their big one, big signing, very fairly quiet. Teams kind of kept themselves under wraps this offseason. They are the other team in the Hall of Fame game this on Thursday, so going to be kind of fascinating to see how that plays out, what they're going to kind of move with. Joe, what is the issue and what does Cleveland have to do? The over under here, again, 9.5.
Yeah, I think another Vegas is right on point. I think that's just a key thing we've been saying, right? But I think the big news here, the big thing here to talk about is Deshaun Watson is going to have a full off season with nothing in his way.
Mm-hmm.
No allegations, no court stuff, nothing going on there, no suspension. It's just him and football, right? And I think Deshaun Watson to me, when he's on his game, is a top seven, top eight quarterback in the league. No questions about it. Again, he can pass the hell out of the ball. He can run a little bit too, and he's got a great IQ in the game. I think the last 6 games that he played was at least just to give him some reps. I know he went 3-3 with solid stuff. He looked horrible in games. I will tell you that for a fact. And then he looked okay in other games. But I think with a full off season, finally with everything past him now at this point, and kind of getting the full off season with the offensive plays and stuff like that, and hooking up with the guys now, I think he's going to be a difference maker, and he's going to come back to that Houston Texan games that he was 2-3 years ago as well. I think Nick Chubb's still going to keep rolling as he is. He's like a certified 12, 1,300-yard back. I mean, even 1,400-yard back. Ain't nothing new there. They still got the offensive line that's still pretty built up. They improved on the receivers with Amari Cooper. They got Amari Cooper, who had over 1,000 yards last year. I didn't realize that. Had over 1,000 yards, 9 tutties. Had a really, really solid year. Bounce back year, some would say, to what he had the
Mhm.
first and second year at Dallas, even to what he was with the Raiders. The Donovan People-Jones looking to get better at what he was. Elijah Moore in the slot going to be solid as well. And people forget about this as well. They got a great tight end too. David Njoku can ball. He was
Great.
on a tear before he got injured. I remember
Mhm.
having him in fantasy, and he was good for God. I don't know, 15, 20 points a week, and I'm like, dude, this dude's tight end one
Hey,
until he got
tutties.
injured.
He was getting putting up tutties.
So really, really solid, great target for Deshaun Watson. On the flip side, the D line's going to be there. It's you got Miles Garrett and you got Zadarius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson now. It's going to be there. I'm not worried about it. It just comes back down to the other side now, right? The secondary. How is that going to work? I feel like that's what a lot of these issues are in the AFC North, right? You talked
Mhm.
about the Bengals. Their secondary is going to be very weak now. Just talked about the Ravens. Their secondary is a little shaky now. Now you're talking about the Cleveland Browns. Their secondary is going to be shaky now. A lot of these wide receivers are going to have some field days on this secondary, to say the least.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think you can kind of see it for, I mean, we're going to talk about Pittsburgh a little bit more later, but I think most, like you said, these three teams for sure, their problem is whether or not they're going to be able to cover anybody at all. That's going to be the biggest thing. I wouldn't be surprised, especially from, you're going to see a lot of zone from these three teams. I would be stunned if these teams, especially Cleveland, if they go man to man. They really just don't have the pieces right now to be able to really combat that, right? Remember, they were 17th ranked defense last year in points, so middle tier, and their offense wasn't good enough last year. I mean, a lot of that was Jacoby Brissett, and he held his own as the push-in starter, right, for when Deshaun. But even when Deshaun came back, they weren't really winning games in shootouts. The games were very tight, very low scoring. I think that's kind of been a predication of what it's going to happen with Cleveland. Can they win the tight game? That's what didn't happen last year because Brissett kept them in a lot of games. It wasn't like they were getting blown out week in, week out. It just came to a couple crunch plays in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I do like a lot the Elijah Moore move. I think he's going to be a lot more of a focal point in this offense. Deshaun Watson really relies on that middle of the field with Njoku. You add Elijah Moore in there as well. I think that's going to be a solid 1-2 punch, especially inside the numbers for them. And Nick Chubb's going to eat, regardless of how many touches he's going to get. The man's going to put up his numbers. It doesn't matter. You can have 8 in the box, and the man's still going to get his. So that's going to also help out and open up the passing game. And like you said, when Deshaun Watson's on, he's elite. The question will now be, right? He had the full off season. He had that such a long time from football in between Houston and Cleveland. Where does it lie? Does he jump back to where he was in Houston, or do we see more of what he was the last 6 weeks in Cleveland?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think it's a great point, actually. And where do you see him? I think it's going to lean more to going back to the Houston side of things, right? I think, he's still, God, man, what's he like, 27,
Yeah,
twenty
he's not old. He's still not.
Yeah,
It's just starting to reach the prime of his career.
correct. Yeah. So I think, like I said, a full off season. He's got some great weapons now. Maybe not the best weapons he's had because that weaponry that he had with D Hop and Will Fuller was incredible to watch. Amari, don't get me wrong. Amari, Donovan People Jones, and Elijah Moore's not bad. It's not as good
No.
as it was there. But he's also got great running back behind him in Nick Chubb. He's got a pretty solid O line. as well, better than what he had in Houston. So I like to see how he's going to work out, right? See what he's going to do, and with this Cleveland Browns team this year now. Flip side, though, I know we were talking about the secondary. I don't think they're as bad as the Bengals are. I think the Bengals are bad. Like they don't have
The
anybody.
Bengals will be the arguably one of the worst
Yeah,
defenses,
like the
secondaries in
Ravens at
football.
least got we didn't really talk about, but they at least got Marlon Humphrey, which he's a pretty solid cornerback. Here they got Denzel Ward, so it's not bad, right? Greg Newsome's their nickel cornerback as well.
Right.
So I think Grant Delpit, say it
Grant
wrong.
Delpit's and there's
Yeah,
one of their
Delpit.
safeties.
Yeah, so they got some names. I think
They're young. The Cleveland
yeah,
secondary is a very young secondary that's still
at,
trying to grow into it.
as we're talking more and more, and as we get move up the teams we go down the teams, it gets better and better. People, I promise, the Steelers are a lot better. So
Just transition to it.
well, yeah, no, I want to
I'm
get
just
done
kidding.
with the
I'm just
Cleveland
kidding. I'm
Browns here,
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
but I want to ask you, and because I think Pickett kind of is the outlier. I think Pickett's the fourth best. You had to pick the top three quarterbacks here in this division. Who is it?
I'm going in the order that they finished: Burrow, Lamar, and Deshaun. Then Pickett's four.
Interesting. Okay,
I
I think
honestly, I could make the argument that I would put Lamar Jackson as my number one quarterback, though. I
yeah,
think it's that tight.
yeah, that's what I think. Actually, I think Lamar is one for me.
I
Two
think
is Burrow, and Watson's three.
see and I'm not going to even argue with that, right? But like we said, I have to see it for at least 15 weeks. You
Sure.
got to give me 15 weeks. You give me 15 weeks, he is like we talked about the most. I mean, I think for me personally, he's the most elite player on the football field. He is the best playmaker on the football field, in my opinion, when he's healthy. That's just the way I look at it. Like he's been
Career. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
like honestly, like I usually try to pick him as a top three MVP candidate every year because I think he's just a man on a mission. Like last year he got hurt. He was my pick for MVP last year. Does the money now help that? But I don't know. So like I can make that argument, but health plays a role for me, so that's why Burrow stays ahead.
Career wise, so far, if you had to choose, would you rather want Joe Burrow's career wise so far? Or would you rather want Lamar Jackson's?
Burrows because he played in the Super Bowl.
That's the reason why. Just because he played in the Super Bowl.
I mean, if you're looking at it from a personal standpoint, right, it's Lamar's. But if you're looking at it, see, like I value championships, so I think over
Of course.
MVPs. So Burrow had a chance at a championship. I put Burrow ahead just slightly. Lamar hasn't Lamar hasn't even gotten himself to a conference championship game yet, which isn't partially. It's not all of his fault, right? But it's
Sure.
still
Okay.
I
All
value
right.
that. What do you taking Burrow or Lamar?
I think I'm gonna take Lamar
Okay,
because you have the MVP to show for it. If
okay.
Burrow won that Super Bowl, I would have said, all right, yeah, we're gonna go Burrow because I say the same thing. I think championship's over. But if you just lose,
What
then
does that really mean? Right.
yeah, like you just lost, truthfully enough, to say the very least.
Here's the
Just
first
try.
loser. Congratulations, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a past example, right? Like back in the day that you could think like the only one that keeps coming to mind is like Donovan McNabb or Michael Vick. But like I don't remember if Michael Vick won the MVP.
I don't think
Uh,
he actually ever did, even though he
but
was
I don't
the.
think he did. But I'll tell you what, people remember Michael Vick than they do Donovan McNabb. So
That's because Donovan McNabb's end of his career was so freaking bad. And Michael Vick arguably got better as a passer as he got older.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, my 2 cents is that I would actually go with Lamar's career so far. Yes, the injuries have, kind of derailed him to an extent, but you did have one incredible year
Right.
and an MVP season that like almost potentially changed the game completely for people
Mm-hmm.
at first. They really were
Right.
thinking, wow, I need like a running quarterback now. Um, and truthfully enough, he kind of did slightly change the game with that, right? Because now you don't get a lot of them pocket passing quarterbacks or strictly pocket passing quarterbacks. especially with the tide change and the era change that we've just seen happen now, almost all of them quarterbacks can move at least a little bit at the
to a
slightest.
degree, right? Yeah.
They're not like the Brady, Breezes, and Mannings of the world. Herbert can move a little bit. Mahomes can move a little bit. Burrow, I guess, would be more of the one where, like, okay, he is a pocket passer, but like I've
Man's
seen
got
him move.
some man's got some sneaky good legs.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Lamar, can move as well.
Josh
Um,
Allen can move, no problem.
Trevor Lawrence can move as well. So, like, a lot of these guys can move. It's not a standstill pocket like it used to be during the Manning, Brady, and Breeze era. So, yeah, and Lamar might have changed that to an extent a little bit, right? Because you need to be able to kill the defense not only with your arm, but potentially with your leg.
Yeah,
So,
you just have to threat. It's not even half the time that you have to run. You just have to threaten that you have the ability to run, but they
mhm.
have to respect it. No, I agree.
Exactly. Exactly. So, all right, well, let's move over to the last team in the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They did add a lot this offseason. It was a good offseason for them. They helped out Kenny Pickett and they helped out the defensive side of the ball as well. The key additions were Isaac Seumalo, the guard from Philadelphia Eagles, solid pickup for them.
Great
Allen
pickup.
Robinson, a good vet wide receiver. Hopefully, he can turn it around this year.
Mm-hmm.
Keanu Neal, the safety. Patrick Peterson, a couple pickups in terms of the draft they got with Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia, Joey Porter Jr., cornerback from the Pennsylvania State University, and Darnell Washington, the big freak tight end out of Georgia. Buddy. Oh, and I'm sorry, key departures was Cameron Sutton, cornerback, and Devin Bush. I apologize. So over under set at 8.5. Year two of Kenny Pickett, hopefully to see some improvement as was last year. Hopefully we'll see this offense grow, especially being so young as it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Second year, a lot of these players. And hopefully now with some more protection for Kenny Pickett, we will see improvement from him. Blaine, it looks like they added a lot, truthfully, right? It looks
Mm-hmm.
like they were able now to add more protection for Kenny Pickett. You have another year, potentially a great in Najee Harris, solid wide receivers as well with Allen Robinson, George Pickens, and Deontay Johnson. Adding the Darnell Washington to the tight end room. Seems like that offense is going to blow up, and it seems like it's all going to be on Kenny Pickett now. What do you think?
I agree. I think this all comes down to Kenny Pickett, right? This team won 9 games, and Kenny Pickett was not the day one starter. You get a full year now. You've made a lot of offensive pieces. Kenny Pickett, there's no excuse now in year two. I mean, the man, not gonna lie, the man was clutch when he needed to be, though, in some of those low scoring games. Some of those games were awful to watch when it attained to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But that's how they've embraced that mentality of, especially these last couple of years where they've struggled at the quarterback and especially on the offensive side of the ball, where they're just gonna make it look ugly. Their defense is gonna be elite. And if you get them arguably 17 to 20 points, they're gonna win the football game because the defense just has that type of chip on their shoulder. And the defense arguably got better, right? Adding Joey Porter Jr., Patrick Peterson in the secondary. I mean, Devin Bush is a huge loss. So does the linebacking core take a hit? But their secondary, I think, got more elite. Adding Minka Fitzpatrick still back there. You can make the argument that this is the clear best secondary out of the 4 teams, right? We can both agree to that without questions asked. So can they kind of now make it competitive? And they've got arguably the second best coach in football behind Belichick and Mike Tomlin. Like that's a fair statement. He's in
No.
that conversation. No,
Second? You said he's second?
he's got to be in the second conversation. I think it's a debate. It's not cut in stone that he's second.
You're saying he's the second best head coach in the NFL. Is that what you said?
I think he's 2 or 3.
I'll consider more 3. Sure, he's not second though at all.
All right, that's fair. I think that's yeah, okay. But the man is a huge impact on his team.
You're not even gonna ask who my second is?
No, who's
God,
your second? All right,
it's
go
Andy
ahead.
Reid. Andy Reid's number 2. Come on now.
I think Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin are 2A, 2B.
What? Oh, all right, we gotta stop the conversation here.
Oh
How?
my gosh.
How do you say that?
Because Andy Reid's an offensive guru, Mike Tomlin's a defensive guru, so they balance each other out.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the statement you just made 5, 10 minutes ago that you take championships over anything, right?
Right, all right. Now I will eat my words because you just pulled that out of your. Nope,
The
that's fair.
man,
All
the
right,
man is
Tomlin's at
what?
3. Okay, Tomlin's third then. I totally.
Hold up. I know that. Hold on now, you're not done. Give me a second here.
Oh boy, you're
I'll
gonna
even
give
say
me a
this.
list of coaches now, aren't you?
I know I do like Mike Tomlin. I'm a big fan of him. However, I think he gets a little too much
Why is that?
for being over 500. That's my issue. Like, I think he's a solid coach. I think he's a very, very big player coach kind of guy.
Joe, to shoot that statement right back at you. The team has been absolutely nothing the last couple of seasons, and he somehow got them to be competitive.
Sure. And that's what I said. Like, he's a player's coach. He gets these guys to rally behind him and go. However, I don't know if he's third because you also have a guy in the northwest of the world that had a team that was expected to be absolute dog shit last year,
And you're
and they
talking
made the
about Pete.
playoffs.
You're talking Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll.
You could say the exact same thing about Mike Tomlin 2 years ago when Duck Hodges was freaking quarterback, and he did the exact same thing that Seattle did.
I'm just saying, look at that, and look what Pete Carroll has done.
Right. Nope, that's a fair statement. They
How many
both have what?
championships? How many?
They both have one. No,
No,
Seattle's
that's
got
Seattle's
two.
two.
Is Seattle two? Seattle's
Yeah,
got two. Tomlin's got one.
and Tomlin got one. Is that the one that Bill Cowher kind of gave him?
You can make that statement. You could also make the statement that Pete Carroll should have 3 if he didn't hand the freaking decide to
Well,
take the ball out of
yeah,
whose hands.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, but what
Well,
are you
is
gonna
it
do,
no
huh?
wait, is it only one? It might only be one for Pete. Because he lost that one, the other one.
So I know they beat Denver.
Yeah, but they lost to New England the other time they were in the Super
So
Bowl.
maybe it is one. Yeah. All right. But still, I think Pete's a better coach.
Okay, that's fair.
I
I would
think
take
Pete's a
Mike
better
Tomlin
coach.
over Pete.
But like I still look, I'm just fighting you just to fight a
Yeah,
little bit
I know
here.
you want to fight,
But
but
I mean Mike Tomlin
I
is
will withdraw my second conversation. Okay, I agree there. I would put Andy Reid ahead. I just totally dropped the ball. I'm not even
no,
gonna
you're good. I think
lie.
Mike Tomlin is a top 5 coach no matter what, though. I do
Oh,
agree with you there.
no questions asked. You don't even
Yeah.
have to. No, but like I think you have to value that. The man, like you mentioned, gets rallies the troops. He gets them to play harder when everyone doubts them. Like last year, I think even myself include them had them not even getting to 6 games with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, regardless of who the quarterback was, and they played both of them. And they made it 9-8 and lost on a tiebreaker to miss the playoffs, right? To Miami. Like that's I think that has to be valued. The 8.5 is a perfect number, right? Because that is whether or not he keeps the streak alive
Yeah,
of being
exactly.
competitive. That's 100% why Vegas did it, because they know that it's going to be right there, regardless of how poorly this team plays. Because they could be absolutely ice cold, and then all of a sudden something clicks on the defensive side of the ball, and they do enough offensively to get them over the line. All right, what's your thoughts now on Pittsburgh?
I want to say they're going to improve, right? Like that's what the indication is.
The paper says that, right? Paper says that.
But like I just can't buy into it.
Okay.
I just can't. Just purely because of the fact of the matter is this division is going to be tough. It's going to be difficult.
This is
And
the most open division, I think.
uh, like you can make a case for every one of them. I get that. But to me, the Steelers are like the least one you can make the case on, right? And the reason
Right.
why is essentially the banking on Kenny Pickett's improvement. And truthfully enough, I wasn't big on him coming out, and I'm still not big on him again this year.
Mhm.
So I think that's the thing. He's the fourth quarterback here in the NFC North or AFC North. I keep saying NFC, AFC North, excuse me. Now, however, on the flip side, I think the Steelers are probably top two defense, though, on the flip side. But over the last couple years, I mean, I've kind of noticed is that it doesn't really matter what your defense is anymore because the better offense is going to triumph the better defense. It never was like that, but the last
Mhm.
couple of years it's been like that, which is
Right.
terrible to say. Um, so, and I just think, truthfully, I think the Steelers are the worst offense though out of all four teams.
I think you don't even have to really argue that, right? Based
But
off
like,
of
I don't think they're far off. I just think they're too young still. Like, we could be sitting here 2, 3 years from now. Kenny Pickett could now potentially be right there with Joe Burrow, right?
Mhm.
George Pickens, Deontay Johnson could, go to be like one of the best wide receiver duos for all I know.
They got plenty of weapons. It's not like the weapons
Yes.
aren't there.
Like
It all
Najee
comes down
Harris
to
could be at the point of like Saquon Barkley, like looking for 20, 15, 20 million now at that point. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. I just don't think they're there yet, and I can't buy into them just yet.
All right. So let's then give some numbers then, right? Let's do you have win totals for this here,
Yeah,
Joe?
I've been switching it the entire time we were talking. It's terrible. I'm so
Because
like,
it's that tight, right? It is
yeah,
that tight. Like you
yeah,
have three, all four of them are over under is whether or not they're going to be 500 or not. Like it's that tight around that number.
yeah.
All right. So let's do your order first before records. What's your one, two, three, four?
Ravens 1, Bengals 2, Browns 3, Steelers 4.
All right. I've got Ravens one, Bengals two, Steelers three, Browns four.
Okay, it's probably not too far off.
No, you can make
Uh,
a case for any of those four teams to arguably win that division.
I got this again, and
I've
truthfully
got,
enough,
yeah.
I had the Bengals before we started this podcast. I had the Bengals; they were gonna win it. And then as I'm talking, I'm like, nah, I'm in on the Ravens. Like we're going with them. Like, and then I had the Steelers like in a lower win total, and then I'm like, nah, they're not gonna be that low. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, the Browns I had like at a way higher win total. I'm like, nah, they're not gonna be that high. So yeah, record
It's
wise, I got the Ravens at 11-6. I got Bengals at 10-7, Browns 9-8, and Steelers 8-9. Like
I
it's
have the exact same records in the opposite and just in the revert in that order.
yeah,
Besides Pittsburgh's the one that gets nine. Tomlin keeps the streak alive, just misses out in the playoffs.
sure. And I'm not gonna fight you on that. And now, truthfully enough, like I do think the Browns are the kind of X factorish team that we just don't know a hundred
We
percent.
don't know enough about what Deshaun's gonna give.
Yeah, like like I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns end of the year come around and they're 11-6. Like, all
Oh
right,
no, it wouldn't shock me either.
but I also wouldn't be shocked if they're
6-11.
7, yeah, 6-11 or 7-10. I'm like, all right, kind of didn't. I mean, I kind of didn't see it coming, but I did see it coming. So,
I think it's next year for Cleveland. It's make it or break it. Like
try.
for
Agree.
them, if they're not back in the playoffs next year, then there's a real problem of why you paid Deshaun Watson all that money.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. So, all right, bro, let me get an MVP. Oof, that's a
Man,
big breath. Oof.
it's a tough breath right now. You know, I mean, it's if I'm picking Baltimore, it's Lamar Jackson. It's gotta be. I don't think it's really hard. I do want to pick someone. if I'm not, if let's just say I take Lamar out of this conversation for this, I think Mark Andrews would be the next option for me.
Good stuff.
What about
Um,
you?
I'm on the same
MVP.
boat with you. I think it's Lamar Jackson. I think if you have him winning division, that means he is back up to the MVP caliber level.
Yeah,
Like,
if they win division at 11-6, that means we're guaranteeing that he's playing 14 games.
yeah, agreed. I think or some amounts of games where he can win 11 games.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's Lamar. However, I do have kind of like a duo one here. I think Amari Cooper's gonna have a hell of a year this year.
Okay.
I think that bounce back year of like over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, I think is you could see even better of what he did last year. I
Right.
was looking up at the stats of the last kind of 3 to 4 games that he was here with Deshaun Watson. He was still getting over like 80 yards a game, with Deshaun Watson. Sometimes even 110 yards a game,
Mhm.
touchdown here or there, even when Watson looked like shit,
Sure.
truthfully.
Right.
So I think if you can see that improvement, I think Amari Cooper could be good for 1,400 yards if his hamstrings don't blow out.
Warranted. Completely
So,
warranted. All right,
so
who's your well, you do sleeper and then first. Who's sleeper?
So sleeper for me, I'm sticking still with the Baltimore Ravens. Also big on this guy. I think he had a hell of a way to finish last year. It's J.K. Dobbins. I think he comes back. I think he takes kind of the reign back in that backfield. Of course,
Mhm.
they're going to cycle through players. I mean, that's just a given here with an
Right.
horrible. But I think Dobbins is going to potentially get up to 1,000 yards. I think he could get good amount of touchdowns, and I think he's finally going to be able to bounce back off that Achilles injury and return back to form.
That's not a bad pick. I think the amount of running backs that Baltimore plays will hurt that just a tad, in my opinion. But I don't hate the pick at all. I'm gonna go with I think it's gonna be George Pickens for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why?
I'm so out on him. It's unbelievable.
Really? You're that far out on him?
I'm so out on him. I'm so done with him. I just
Why is that?
go ahead, give me a reason why, and then I'll
I love his ball skills because Deontay drops the ball too much. So the only other options Pickens to get him the ball. I was thinking maybe going Fryermuth, but I decided not to. I was like, sleeper wise, I think Kenny Pickett takes that next step just enough for them to be competitive in games. And they got to have someone that can catch the rock. And Pickens has enough potential. This is a very raw guess that I'm kind of making, right? As a sleeper. He's got all of the potential in the world, but he didn't produce in Georgia either, right? He showed flashes last year in Pittsburgh in his rookie year. I'm hoping that he takes that next step. But again, very raw. My other one was going to be Elijah Moore for Cleveland. I think that's a home run that potentially could be happening for him.
so he reminds me a lot of like Chase Claypool. Like he's gonna have games where he goes like 10 yards, and then he's gonna have games where it's like 120.
Right.
And in addition, it's just dude, it's like
It's
everything you
eerily
hear.
similar how much their comparison wise, they're almost the exact same player.
And then on top of it, man, he's just like I feel like everything you hear out of camp and everything you heard last year, it's like such a head case. Like I'm like,
I
dude,
have
what
heard that. Yeah.
what are you doing? Like, and the other reason why I say like I'm just kind of out on him, right, is you have Deontay Johnson who's going to demand essentially 10 to 12 targets a game, and now you've brought in Allen Robinson as well, who was still young, good,
Mm-hmm.
solid veteran wide receiver, who's probably going to try to command 6 to 8, maybe 10 targets a game. So that's 20 already. Fryer is probably good for 4 or 5.
And
And
at that
Najee's
point,
gonna
you've hit Pickett's cap limit already.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So where like what he's gonna get a couple deep shots probably here and there. So like I
Mm-hmm.
said, like you're gonna get your games for the Chase Claypool game. You're gonna have 110 yards. You're gonna be pissed that you didn't pick him up. You're gonna pick him up next week. You're gonna start him in your fantasy lineup. He's gonna shit the bed and get you 1.3 points. What else can we tell you, people? That's just what he is for me. I have no desire for him to pick him up. And I hope he proves me wrong. I really do. I love when
Mm-hmm.
people prove me wrong because I'm like, thank you. Great job. You did your job. But I just don't see it out of him.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. I personally think that the catches will finally hurt Deontay Johnson because of Allen Robinson and Pickens being behind him.
Sure.
That's just me. I think the drops finally catch him and he drops down the depth chart and George Pickens hops on the opportunity. I That's just me. Like Deontay will argue those, but the man, you can lock him in for 2 or 3 drops. You can book it.
Nah, he did a lot better last year because
He
I did have
did.
him on my fantasy team, and he was way, way better with the drops last year.
Okay.
So I do know that for a fact, and he's probably still working on it, as well. But yeah, I'm not big on Pickens, man, and
Okay.
it's tough, right? Like the sleeper wise, I think because truthfully, this division is so tough to pick a sleeper because there isn't really that many, right? Everybody in the Bengals, everybody at this point. Like there is really no sleepers to be
No,
out
there's no
there.
sleeper in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Ravens, you're kind of like limited. Like, what are you gonna say, Zay Flowers? Like, you kind of have some expectations for him there. Steelers, there's a lot more open, I guess, right? And the Browns, you have pretty much Elijah Moore and David. If you want to say David Njoku, even though
I
David Njoku,
don't I don't think him as I don't see him as a sleeper.
exactly, exactly. So this division is very tough to name a sleeper per se.
Agreed.
So I don't know. I don't know.
No, I think this is easily the most fascinating division this year.
Yeah. Going to be interesting. I will say that, but they do all four of these teams have very, very difficult schedules. Um, I know you got a chance to look, I got a chance to look, but the listener, go take a look at who the Bengals are going to have to play, who the Ravens are going to have to play, the Steelers are going to have to play. It is some severely difficult matchups. The Browns have a way easier one because obviously they came in last place, so they're playing the last place division. Um,
And
but
you got to remember these divisional games, these teams beat each other the fuck up.
Yep. I was going through the schedule and I'm like count on my hand, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm like, oh wait, nah, the Bengals are definitely gonna lose to the Steelers once. I'm like, I gotta take one off. Or like, I'm like the Browns are playing the Ravens. I'm like, we'll get the Browns to win here because they're gonna pull out a victory. It's just like a matter of fact. They're just like the NFC East for me. Like, they're probably all gonna end up right around that 4-4 mark. Somebody may end up 5-3 but like 6-2, I'd be shocked, right? Like you're like, wow, holy
Mhm.
crap. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's just exactly what's gonna happen. So,
Yeah, it'll be fascinating stuff for sure. Another, hey, that wraps up another one. Good job, dude.
yeah, another great episode. We will not be on here next week because I will not be here. I'm on vacation, but I will make sure that following week, folks, I will be back on ready to talk some more. Let's do so we did AFC North. We've
Yeah,
done
you
AFCs.
get to pick again. Pick
All
again.
right.
AFC North, AFC East, and NFC East we've done.
So I think we should just continue with it and we'll just smack up North, NFC North,
Okay.
Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, and the Chicago the Bears as well. So we'll get into that the following week. And then we're catching up to football sooner rather than later. We may
I
have to
know
start doing two divisions.
we're gonna have to talk college football in the next one too. Opening weeks that week after.
Wow.
You better start looking up some college football stuff, boyo.
All right. I'll do my best now. I'll do my best. I know I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. next year, though, when he comes out in Dynasty. So I'll tell you that. So that's
Or
all I
you
know.
can book it. You can book it.
Oh, yeah. I'll trade for that pick. I don't care. He's it. He's who I want. Marvin Harrison Jr. and give me Caleb Williams in a second if I need it. So
That's not a bad idea.
thank you. I know. Might be making some deals later on. So
Wheeling
good.
and dealing always with fantasy.
Absolutely. So, yeah, good stuff tonight. We'll get into the NFC North in 2 weeks, folks. 2 weeks. So, yeah, make sure you let us know how we're doing as always. What do you got to do, Blaine? You got to subscribe. You got to like on YouTube. You gotta like us on Spotify. Yeah, Apple Radio or
Apple Podcasts,
Apple Podcast.
iHeartRadio.
Shit, we're on iHeartRadio. Wow, that's a throwback right there. Holy crap. Um, yeah, make sure you always hit us like, let us know how we're doing. Hit us up in the DMs. hit us up in the DMs. Want us to have a conversation about some a little question you got? More than happy to answer it on here. No questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of wraps it up for us. Joe Ciccoletti, Blaine Spencer. We're signing off with another edition of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. Joe's going to go enjoy his vacation and not talk to me for a little while. Stay tuned, everyone, in a couple weeks. Thanks for coming.